Well, welcome to my next video, or my latest video, which is RAF Swannington, or the former RAF Swannington. And we're going to start today at St Peter's Church. Now, if you can just see where that line is there, that is the edge of the airfield. You can see how close it is to the church. So as usual, I'll tell you more about the airfield as we go around. So join us on our latest venture. Right, making our way around the church, but while we stood here, looking out over the surrounding area, the actual airbase itself, the domestic site, shall we say, was all over here in these trees. A lot of it's disappeared now. There used to be a squash court and obviously admin buildings, but they've all gone. And it's on private land anyway. But what I have brought you to see is the grave of an airman that was killed here during the war. Now we have here the grave of Flying Officer Geoffrey Neil Edwards, Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve. He was a navigator on a Mosquito and was killed on the 22nd of December 1944, aged 22. The aircraft was returning from an intruder mission when the aircraft developed aileron troubles and crashed on approach to the airfield. Both he and his pilot, a 23-year-old Flight Lieutenant W. Taylor, were killed. Geoffrey had been mentioned in dispatches on the 5th of February 1944, previous to this, his last mission. There is another grave in the churchyard, and it's actually dated 1947. Now, this is to Corporal Cecil Albert Mace, also of the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve. He was a driver, and he died on the 23rd of August 1947, aged 40. Of illness, it says, in a Norfolk and Norwich hospital. So though he died 2 years after the war, it may have been related to a war injury or war illness that he succumbed to in 1947. Right, I want you to bear that picture that you can see there. I hope that's in focus. I'm going to show you roughly where that Mosquito bomber was parked. Right, so we come a little bit away from the church. Now, I would say that Mosquito was parked somewhere where this hedge is. So you can see the airfield came all the way out this way, all the way out this far. I'm actually walking on the old perimeter track or taxiway. This is its original width here, and you can see a lot of it's been dug up since the war. The airfield's construction started in 1942, but it actually wasn't open until the 1st of May 1944, and it became operational. So when it first became operational, 85 Squadron were the first ones to arrive here, along with 157 that came along I think about a week or so later. They both had Mosquitoes, and they were special duties squadrons, and they both were equipped with Mosquito aircraft. I'll show you a picture of one of them if you don't know what one looks like. They carried out night intruder missions and also bomber escort duties, but they also were involved in countering the electronic warfare that the Luftwaffe were waging in Europe. As I walk up here, it was actually an A-class aerodrome. As you can see, this is a taxiway. Now, A-class aerodromes had literally an A shape of runways that form more of a triangle. When it was built, it had 3 of these runways, 2 Type 2 hangars, which you've seen in the last video, which I'll link in the end of this video. 1 B hangar, which I believe is a blister hangar, which is a dome-shaped hangar. And 36 loop hard stands, which would accommodate up to about 72 aircraft. We come to somewhere near the northern end of the actual airfield, and there's a great big building built to the left here. I'm not really going to film that, it's not of any interest. And there's very few buildings left here, but you can actually see you're walking on parts of the old airfield because the road has been built over the top. And I think we're at the end of one of the runways here. And you know when you're driving near an airfield because you get these expansion joints in the concrete. And all they do is just lay the tarmac on top of it, and every sort of 10-12 feet you could dump as you go over the expansion joint, so you know you're near an old airfield, or one part of the old airfield. So though we're on the road, we're still on the old perimeter track. We come around a bit further now. And there's a big expanse of concrete here. I'm not really sure whether this is the end of a runway or this is a big taxiway. It's more like a taxiway by the shape of it. And I think as we come round to this bit here, in front of us, that's going to be the end of one of the runways. I think this is used as a beat pad now. So if you go in the church like we did, you can pick up a little information leaflet, and actually it tells you all about the old airfield, including that picture with the mosquito. Very little evidence of the runways now, because as I said in Matlas, they dig it all up because it's good quality hardcore for foundations, etc. So in addition to the Mosquito squadrons, we had two Spitfire squadrons. They were 221 and 451 Australian squadrons. They conducted daylight bomber escort, and the air superiority was such that Bomber Command decided to fly in daylight at this stage of the war, because he's looking at the end of 1944 now. And coincidentally, the Spitfires from 229 squadron operated from Swannington in the last 6 weeks of 44, as Matlask was waterlogged, as you will note if you see my last video. And there's a taxiway leading down there. We're going to come to the other end of that in a minute, and I'll show you that and tell you a little bit more about the airfield. As you can, I don't know if you can see that, but you can actually see we are at the end of one of the runways, which is this line where my thumb is. And that's this lump of concrete here, is where that arrow is on there. So it is just the edge of we're on just the edge of the taxiway. Right, we've been north of the airfield to see what we can see, and all we can see over there, I don't think it's cameras. I'll pick it up. In the middle of the picture here, some old buildings there. Well, unfortunately here a lot of stuff is on private land and it's all fenced off, so we can't get near it. But that does look like old World War II stuff up over there. You can tell by the asbestos roof, the outward buttresses on the wall and the rendering on the walls. I thought most of the buildings were gone from here, but apparently not. See that? Can't see it properly, but now there's a saying, if you're in a town and you want to know the history of the town, you look up. You see the buildings above the shops, and it shows how old some of the buildings are, how far back the town goes. When you're looking for old airfields, you have to look down. And here we are now, we're over on the west side of Swannington. As we look down, we've just come up that road there. We look down, you can see another taxiway. That taxiway leads to the north end where we were, where the industrial estate was, or that bend. And over here would have been the main runways. One across here, another one across there, and another one across the middle. We will find the end of that runway in a minute. I'm just going to go under this gate. Take a little walk, see what we can see. Now, I've said about the construction of the airfield that was to my right. And it was designated like A-class airfield. Well, the airfield was actually could accommodate up to 2,500 people. There's a lot less people here during the war, but it could actually accommodate 2,500 people. And you can't imagine how many people that, and what you can't imagine is how, where they'd be accommodated. Some were obviously put in billeting, and some were billeted in the houses around the village, but this actual base could hold 2,500 people. Unbelievable. And once again, you try and cast your mind back to 1944 when this was operational. And by the way, this was the last operational airfield opened in Norfolk in World War II. So it had a very short history, just about a year. It closed in 1947, it was a maintenance command. And in 1957 it was sold off and basically gone back to agriculture like so many of them have. As I walk back, I can tell you the last mission, I'll keep the taxiway in the background there, the last mission was carried out on the 2nd and the 3rd of May 1945. And that was the last missions carried out by Bomber Command in World War II. And this airfield was involved. That's the Kiel in Germany. And the squadron from here, probably the Spitfires more than the Mozzies, provided high level support for the bomber streams. And that really was the end of the operational side of RAF Swannington. We're going to go down the road a little bit and view what's left, the biggest chunk left of one of the runways. That's the east to west runway. Strange person. So I'm going to spin round now. I'm going to walk along the road for a bit. Like I said earlier in the video, the roads we see now were taxiways in World War II, but prior to that they were probably roads before the war. And you can see these little expansion joints as you come up to them. So you know you're dum 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 every time you go one of the joints. So we're now still on one of the taxiways. Right, I'm going to take a wild guess. So this line across the horizon here is a line of one of the old runways. Concrete there, maybe of World War II vintage. I'm stood on the edge of the Perry track, which you can see is the road, expanding off into the distance. And I'll show you a panorama of what was the old airfield. Hard to imagine 4 squadrons of World War II aircraft flying from here in the war, but it was, and like I say, it only had a short history. It was only here for a year operational, and that was the end of that. There's a lot of work went into it, the concrete runways. Matlask had grass runways and operated for 5 years. This had concrete runways and only ran for 1 year. Hope you can see just where the tip of my thumb is the end of one of the east-west runways, which is to the left here. And this is the largest portion of runway you'll see. The runway extends away into the distance there, but of course it's been reduced in width now because it's been dug up for hardcore. You've got to imagine in World War II the aircraft would have come around the taxiway, which is where we've just driven up on the road, swing into here and take off in that direction or come back the other way, depending on the wind. And that's it, the last of the runway. Now as I walk down the last remnant of the runway behind me, that's the end of our little video here at RAF Swannington. Hope you enjoyed it. It wasn't a lot to see, but I've got to record it now because it's disappearing even now as we speak. They're digging up the concrete. You can see by that concrete behind me. That's going to be, the rest of this will be gone soon. So if you enjoyed it, please think about subscribing. This has been the best week I've ever had on my channel. Matlask got me over 5,300 views, another 80 subscribers, so it's going well. So please think about liking, subscribing and commenting. I've had some very good comments about my last video, so I'll link it in up here somewhere if I can squeeze it in. And as usual, see you on the next one. I don't know when that'll be, but hopefully pretty soon. Thanks.